Cameron Seaton, a 5-star offensive lineman, committed to Colorado when it seemed like Tennessee was making a push. And he said, Caleb, what that got you to call me yesterday and got you thinking and got me thinking, and Fred and I talked about it this morning, got us all thinking. He said what that stuck out to you?
Well, it was Jordan Seaton. That's his name.
Jordan, excuse me, Jordan.
Yeah. Don't worry. I accidentally wrote William Seaton yesterday. So I've when you cover recruiting, I just get names mixed up all the time now. But he was on Undisputed, and he said at a certain point why he was trying to recruit other players for Colorado. And he said, why not, if you got that dog in you, I think was what he said, why not try to go play for coaches who look like you? Something along those lines. I understand recruiting. I understand things are said. And I actually don't even have a problem with that concept. I would just ask, that doesn't just apply to Colorado, does it? Because there's a lot. I mean, Maryland, Notre Dame, Penn State all have African-American head coaches too. So that could be used against Colorado in the future, couldn't it? From other schools.
I don't think so because they're not Deion Sanders. I think ultimately the kid went to that university because of the relationship he has with the coaching staff. People think it's because you got the NIL money stuff now that you can just throw money at someone and that's going to be their motivation. It wasn't the motivation for Travis Hunter. He ended up going to Jackson State because of the coach that was there. He went because of that coach, right? Anybody's motivation is what their motivation is to go somewhere. I chose to go to Tennessee because Philip Fulmer was a better character person, in my opinion, than the guys that were at Alabama. Didn't have a good relationship with Steve Spurrier. I like Bobby Bowden, but it was something he said that made me not want to go to school there. I was never going to go to the university that was in Mississippi simply because I watched a movie called Mississippi Burning. And they flew a Confederate flag, and that wasn't even their state flag. I'm from the state of Georgia. It was our state flag. So yeah, I mean, there's a few reasons why people don't go to schools. I understand that, but I can't tell that kid that he can't go to school because that's his reason. That is his reason. It has nothing to do with, I look at it from our standpoint as University of Tennessee. What can we do to change anything like that? Okay, you can't. What you can do is try to find out how to have coaches on your staff that can recruit kids and know how to learn to build relationships with them. Kids are going to go somewhere because of a relationship too, not just because you put some money in their face. That's not going to be. I think people miss that part of it. Yeah, we might have a whole lot of money to give somebody when it comes to NIL, but what kind of relationship he has with the coach that's there? Because if you won't run through a brick wall for your coach, it won't matter how much money they gave you.
Okay, yeah, Dave. So I just want to bring up one real quick.
Yes, go ahead.
And I'm sorry, but what Fred just said is proof of one of my theories for a long time, which I said that Ole Miss completely fell off the map as a powerhouse after integration because of their open hostility to integration for so many years. And I said it wrecked them as a football program. And Fred, what you just said absolutely proved me right.
Well, they're so dumb so they were still they were still waving around the Confederate flag when I covered a game. So that was in the 2000s. That's really hard for me to believe. So there's a lot of things I want to get in here, but I want to unpack. But first, let me take a step back. Unfortunately, there weren't many black head coaches when you were recruited, Fred. But
no, it wasn't.
I mean, I don't think there was maybe.
I don't know if there was one.
Yeah. Do you think that that's fair for a coach to use that? First, I'm going to take another step back. Do you think Deion uses that and other African-American coaches use that in recruiting?
I don't think he uses it. I think the kid can see that for himself.
Okay. So, so he doesn't even have to mention it. It's just.
No, he doesn't have to mention it.
He
doesn't.
Now, Caleb brought this up yesterday. And if you would have asked me yesterday when Caleb called me, right before he called me, how many African-American coaches are in the Power 5 or Power 4, whatever we end up conferences, I would have said, quite a few, 10, 15. How many coaches are Division I out of 125 schools? I would have said 30 to 40. I think it's because I don't really see race. I would like to think maybe I'm just ignorant. I don't know. It's a lot less than that. Caleb, what was the number? that you threw at me?
The only ones I can name off the top of my head were James Franklin, Mike Loxley, Marcus Freeman, and Deion Sanders. So I think there's only 4 Power 5 black head coaches.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of smaller schools, but only at Power 5 there's only 4 as far as I'm aware.
Mhm.
How big of a problem is that, Brad? I think that's a huge problem.
Well, I look at it from the standpoint of, I mean, I can't tell nobody who to hire. You know what I mean? But
True.
I think these kids do have an option of where they want to go to school, and that's my thought process is focus on the kids who want to come to your school. That makes the difference to me. If a kid doesn't want to come there, it doesn't matter why the reason. He just didn't want to come there. He went somewhere else to go play somewhere else. You know, I mean, I felt like that's to always be the focus. Focus on that. Focus on the kids that want to come here, and that's it.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, there's 15 in Division One. That is unbelievably poor and pitiful in my mind. The fact that you've got so many people, not just players, but involved with the assistant coaches, all these guys. There's so many high percentages of African Americans, and there's 15 of 128 Division One programs. I just double checked and looked it up. That is stunning to me, Fred.
It is, but I also look at this. A lot of those kids, we knew from the beginning that a lot of kids were going to want to go play for Deion Sanders.
True.
A lot of them, especially kids out of the state of Florida. Deion Sanders is like what Peyton Manning is to Tennessee, Deion is to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Hall of Famer too. I mean, he was still probably considered the best defensive back to ever play the game. So a lot of kids do want to go play for him. A lot of kids want to go play for him. Just win the recruiting battles. That's regardless of what. James Franklin can't recruit like Deion Sanders because he's not Deion Sanders. Any other coaches we named that's in Power 5, they can't recruit like Deion Sanders because they're not Deion Sanders. He might be brash. Yeah, he is. It is what it is. But at least he's true to who he is. And what they're doing out there, it is something that you got to say, I played for Deion Sanders. It's like somebody saying I played for Nick Saban or Philip Fulmer or Bobby Bowden.
A lot of people, I think, on our channel don't like Deion. I loved him because when I watched him as a Cowboy, he would talk, but he would always back it up. Every single time. So should Tennessee be worried about Deion losing guys to him like they did with Jordan Seaton? No,
you worry about the kids that you can get on your campus. Why would I worry about somebody else's coach? You worry about whoever else you can get. You about the kids that you can go after. If you put your energy into the negative side of it, or I don't want to worry about what he's doing. Hey, man, I'm going to recruit kids that I want anyway. Win the battle. Plain and simple. It ain't just Deion Sanders. You got Nick Saban. You also got to worry about the same guy that's in your division at Georgia. You got to. I mean, come on. You can't just be worried. If you're worried about those things, you're worried about the wrong things. Go out there and find you some kids that want to come play for you, but also have coaches on your staff that kids want to build relationships with. Ultimately, it's do your job. That's what's my motto, Dave. Do your job. Plain and simple. Go recruit the kid and win the battle. And it ain't just about the money. It's about the relationship you build with those kids. Hey, man, they don't trust you. They won't play for you. Plain and simple.
Yeah, Fred, but you got to admit it does get a little harder for Tennessee when Ray Goff and Mike DeBose are not at Georgia and Alabama.
It does, but you know what that means? Make sure you got people on your staff that can recruit these same kids that you're trying to get. It's about building relationships. You got to have people who can build relationships. Plain and simple. You got to build the relationship with these kids. And if you can't do that, these are issues you will have. And regardless of what their motivation is to go to another school, ultimately, it comes down to what that relationship is.
Yep. Brad, did you know you're the man? You're the man.
I'm a man.
You are the man. Fred, so you think Tennessee's up for the Citrus Bowl and we shouldn't worry about Deion Sanders? As a whole, when we look back over this season, Fred, as the regular season, how would you grade it? Some would say disappointed at 8-4. I would argue that if that's the the bottom, the floor, and at 8-4, then you're pretty darn good.
Well, I think we peaked a year ahead of what we thought we would have anyway. In my opinion, no one thought we would go and win 10 games last year, and we did. But I also look at the fact that we lost 4 guys that got drafted in the NFL, and expectations were high because of what we just did. You know what I mean? So I look at it and I say, I'm okay with 8-4 as long as we're not 6-6. I mean, I know we've been. I know we've been as a program. So do I think we're still going in the right direction? I'm okay with us going in the right direction. I think we're still going in the right direction.
Okay, I'm
okay with that.
Let me ask you this. So somebody posted this on our message board. James Franklin will always be a better head coach than Deion. Franklin doing what he did at Vanderbilt was miraculous. I don't know about miraculous. They played a bunch of high school teams to get to 6 wins. But anyway, so back sort of to the race issue, both guys are African-American. If James Franklin and Deion Sanders came to your door, and one's at Penn State, which is a better football program than Colorado, but if they came knocking on 18-year-old Fred's door with all that you know now and said, come play for me, who would you play for?
Deion Sanders, because he's my favorite football player of all time.
That's right.
He's my favorite football player of all time. Why do you think I wore the number 2 in college? Because of Deion Sanders. Why did I play corner in high school? Because of Deion Sanders. But here's the thing, though. Quick story on James Franklin. I was doing our show. Myself and Terry Fair, we had a show called Double Coverage, and we were doing SEC Media Days. And I will never forget this. Derek Dooley was our head coach. Derek Dooley did not come and do an interview with us. We got a time slot for every coach. The only coach that didn't do the interview with us was Derek Dooley, and he was from our university. James Franklin stood back and waited for us. He saw Derek Dooley jump us, and he asked us if we could have his time. We told him yes. After having that 30-minute conversation with him, I told myself and Terry Fair both were like, wow, if that guy came to my house and sat in front of me and my parents, I would definitely give him an opportunity because of how it was amazing. I was like, this guy I can relate to. He took those 15 minutes that Derek Dooley gave up, and he sat there, he had a conversation with us, and it changed my whole perspective on James Franklin. So as a coach and as a guy who, could come in and recruit, he would be a guy that I would say, okay, I'll give you opportunity, simply because of what he did with us on that show.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this too. I was sent, I guess, about the same time. ESPN sent me to do something on Vanderbilt and how they were actually recruiting okay. And I don't care if he's black, white, yellow, whatever. He was very affable and engaging. All of the positive aspects in a coach you would like that Derek Dooley had none of.
Yeah, and Fred, there was and I just want to mention this too, because it's funny that Derek Dooley came up when we're talking about this, because you guys probably know, to a lot of people, Derek Dooley getting the hire at Tennessee over Kippy Brown before they even interviewed Kippy Brown. And Fred, you mentioned Kevin Sumlin was your cousin. Kevin Sumlin on paper was much more qualified than Derek Dooley for that job in 2000.
Absolutely.
And that was very suspicious to a lot of people. I think that, when we talk about race and head coaching, that he would get the job after a 17-20 season at Louisiana Tech, or record at Louisiana Tech, over Kevin Sumlin, before they even interviewed Kippy Brown, who was the interim coach at the time.
Yeah, that was insane. I still don't understand that.
I remember where I was standing in front of the complex when we got a call that I got the tip that it was Dooley. I was like, Derek, who? All right, Fred.
But let me say this real quick. Coach Sumlin had called me and told me he was going to accept that job. I'm ecstatic. And then 24 hours later, we got Derek Dooley.
And then the year Dooley's fired, Sumlin is SEC Coach of the Year at Texas A&M, 2012.
I to this day, I still don't understand what happened.